Hello, welcome. We are again recording on our separate locations as we are taking the quarantine order fairly seriously. So we have some audio differences today in our podcast, and I hope you guys can stay with us as we adjust. So we have a special guest with us today. We're excited to introduce you to.
What's the
Coby,
question?
What's our question?
No.
What are the major struggles and shifts that couples make in the journey of recovery?
All right, you guys, before we answer that, I want to read this awesome review that we got this week, actually. So it says, such a blessing. This podcast has been amazing for my husband and I's recovery through his addiction. Not only has this podcast given me validation of all of my feelings and that I'm not alone in my feelings, it's given me a way to better understand and cope with them. My husband and I listen to this podcast together and take notes on our own and then discuss after. So it's really given us a platform for discussion that I really believe is helping us understand his addiction better and also grow closer together. Every episode I listen to, I just say yes in my head over and over because it finally feels like I'm understood after many years of feeling like I was crazy and overreacting. Thank you, Ashlynn and Coby, for your bravery. I know this isn't easy to put it all out there. And thank you, Brannon, for all of your wisdom. This podcast has truly been a huge blessing for my sanity and most especially for my marriage.
Thank you.
So I just want to comment about one thing she said, which is it really goes along with our topic today. We have 100 and however many episodes now. And when I do intakes with couples, part of my plan with them going forward is to tell them to do what they're doing, which is to each person listen to an episode on their own and then come together and discuss that topic or that episode. And I found it just very helpful for couples. And they can pick and choose the topics that they want to discuss, whether it's check-ins or rebuilding trust or boundaries or sex or whatever it is. So I'm glad to hear that she's doing that, and it's helpful. So it's awesome.
That's fantastic. That's a great effort on behalf of that couple. So, guys, by way of I guess heads up, we have the Relationship Rescue Challenge that is coming up, and it will be starting again. We had great reviews and feedback, some really key and important shifts for couples who participated in the first round. And so we're excited to launch that again, to make that available. So the best place to find out information on that is to go to beyond-enough.com/relationship. And you can find all the information there. It'll be a great experience. And this is for couples of any season of life, with our story, without our story. This is just about couples rescuing their relationship and building some cohesiveness and some love. So check that out.
Awesome. And just so you know, you can click the show notes below that link and still listen to us while you're signing up for that. Just so FYI. All right, so we have our special guest. It's actually Coby and my therapist, Miss Amy. And just a heads up, we've given her our full permission to share who knows what, I don't know, about us and our story. So here's my permission.
Yeah, and you get mine as well. Guys, we've consented to this because it's important for us that you understand the details that we're not going to always remember as far as the major struggles, but also the major shifts in recovery. So we totally have given Amy permission, both of us.
Yes. So let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been since 2000 and a CSAT since 2013. She's taught courses at BYU and counseled many students at the Women's Services and Resource Center, where her eyes were opened to the world of sexual addiction and trauma. Amy's own life has been affected by sex addiction in a personal way. She knows the struggle, the shame, and guilt that the addict experiences, as well as the other side. She has found it rewarding to facilitate individual change and work with the family system to ensure long-term growth and change. She's currently working at Addo Recovery, where we go. And Amy is a single mom of 6. She's beautiful. If you go up to our YouTube, you can see she's stunning. Her youngest daughter has Down syndrome, and raising her has taught her countless life lessons. We are so excited to have Amy here with us.
So excited.
Thank you, Ash.
So can I know I pipe in way too soon, but I just want to say, if you're listening and you feel a kind of an energy from us of being really comfortable, Ashlynn and Coby, they know Amy so well, and so do I. So Amy's my good friend. I've known her for a long time. I think, not to one up you guys, but longer than you've known Amy. So,
for sure, you have.
So we like to joke, we like to have fun, but we're going to talk about something serious today. But Amy's personality is one where we can break down hard topics but have a good time at the same time. So let's get into it.
Is that your
do it.
disclaimer? Like, Amy's unplugged, you guys. Like...
No, we're unplugged. So.
Okay, so major struggles and obstacles. I mean, I was really an advocate of this, just for everybody who's listening, just to understand. I think it's really, really important that we have, you, Amy, share with the audience where our struggles were, where I struggled, where my challenges were, but then where also the corresponding shifts are. And I don't think that we're like super unique in the world of recovery, because there's a lot of couples who have had similar challenges, and they've also turned similar corners on their journey to heal. But I think it's important to, I guess, in essence, share those, because we don't remember all the things,
Well, and I think we see our own stuff a little different than a therapist does.
Or a little bit different from reality.
Yes.
Even.
Or a mix of all of it. So
yeah.
So what were some of the early challenges and struggles that you observed that we brought with us in your office?
Okay. You guys gave me permission.
We totally did. Give it to us.
So I have to say, in just reflecting back on how much time has it been, 5 years or
14, August of 14.
6 years. I really do feel like this proud parent that pulled out the scrapbook and is like looking at where you guys started and the different chapters of like, oh, so we'll start at the beginning. I remember doing our intake session.
Do you really?
I do. And
I do too.
What I remember is, both of you are radically different humans than you were. Ashlynn was internally just seething with anger and walled. Coby was like blazer wearing, scarf,
hip haircut,
and he was just like, I'm Coby, and he was very like his poser self. I adore Coby, where I can't ever say douche. I've said creepy.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
She just did everything she could to not just call you a douche.
I know.
So you were a douche.
A lot of effort to not say it, Amy.
But I kind of can't, because, yeah.
I was totally in douche mode when I was in your office. No question.
No, but here's the thing. That first session, there was active tension. You did not sit by each other. Ashlynn, like I say, was seething. Coby was all poser. But I will have to say, if there is, I'm mapped out for you both clearly. Okay, these are the steps to working recovery. And Ashlynn, knowing Ashlynn, she's fierce and she has this look in her eyes. And even though she's pissed, she's like, okay, we're doing it. What I loved was Coby. There was a moment where I was saying, okay, you guys, we know how to move you guys like in and through recovery, but you're going to have to be consistent with dailies and journaling. And Ashlynn, in that kind of seething place, was like, kind of scoffed. What? Oh. And, she's like, using consistency when I'm talking about exercise and journaling. And Coby says, Amy, I didn't even journal my mom on my mission or write my mom on my mission. But that moment, you were both committed and you were both humble to recognize, I know more about this than you do, and what you have been doing isn't working. So if Brannon and I were to say, off that first intake session, if we had to gamble, if we had a gambling bet, how do you know who's going to do it and who's not? It's that humility to listen to what we say and do it. And you both had that. You had that humility, even in the poser angry way. You had humility to say, okay, we're going to do it. And you both started.
That's 100% it. Like that humility and that willingness. And I tell the story, you know, I was running the foundations group at the time, and I was like, hey, there's this long-term group thing going on. And before I like really tried to sell everybody on it, Coby was like, yes, sign me up. Like, get me in there. And then you like pulled like 6 other guys to go with you. Like, we're doing this, guys, come on. And I was like, hey, that douche with the fancy haircut, like, he's willing. He's totally willing.
And Coby, honestly, from that first appointment, and I couldn't tell, it was like a mix of, I want to prove to Ashlynn I can do this, and I want to prove to myself I can do this, because Ashlynn kind of did. It's like, you know, she was kind of, I'm already doing all of my dailies, and can Coby do it, you know? And I couldn't tell if it was as much you wanted to prove it to her at first, or you wanted to prove it to you, and then they just all came together.
Yeah, it was a mix, and this is what's really unique, I think, and super cool is that Brannon, I was with you for what, 2 months or whatever it was during Foundations, and you guys both got to see us, and like when we started, and I think that was just that's a really, for us, for Ashlynn and I, that's a really special thing. But I will tell you 1,000%. I knew when I went in that, and I've said this countless times on the podcast, if I had died and had to stand before God knowing that I had cheated a second time, I knew I was toast. So I was motivated internally from this big, huge place of shame.
Yeah.
I was shame motivated. While the dichotomy of that motivation was while also like saying, I have to be able to do whatever it takes to hold on to Ashlynn. So I wasn't doing it. I guess I was doing it in some ways out of a place of love internally for myself, but more out of a place of fear, in truth.
But you know what the bottom line is? From that moment, you both were committed. Like, that moment, you literally did whatever we would say to do. It's like, write in your journal. Okay, we can't read it. It's scribble, but you did it. And,
True.
and like your dailies, you were so consistent. And Ashlynn, you too, you didn't want to be there. You were pissed, you know?
Yeah, I did not like it.
And I said, okay, you need to be in a women's group. And you both leaned into discomfort. We talk about leaning into discomfort. From that first appointment, you both did things you didn't want to do. Ashlynn came to group. Coby went to group.
Yep. I did an intake yesterday, and it was a great couple, and they were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, and I was walking them through like how to get started and what they need to do, and they left, and I thought they really have no idea. Like they're very naive to the process that it's going to take to actually, one, heal themselves, and two, start to come back together. And but the key, like that first appointment's great. Like I overwhelm them with a bunch of stuff to do, but the key to it is that they then say, okay, like let's engage in that process. I'm humble enough. I'm willing enough. One step at a time. Here we go. And I saw you guys have that, and yeah. I think that's what Amy's saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that humility and that commitment to, we're going to do things we don't want to do, and we're going to do them consistently, you know?
Yep. All right. So they start going, Amy. They start moving forward. And so they didn't just end up at the end of the rainbow, right? Like the road was kind of rocky.
So let's flip the scrapbook. That's the
Okay,
first.
let's
Flip
go.
the scrapbook. I think a real crucial moment. You remember doing foundations with Coby, and Coby gets this look on his face when he has an aha moment. And I mean, I honestly, have this visual of Coby, and I actually think he says, like, he kind of looks up and he's like, oh my gosh. I mean,
yes.
So Coby started out foundations, and he was just hungry and eager to learn everything. I think he did foundations like 3 times.
Yeah, I think so.
That's true. I forgot. Yeah.
So Coby was just hungry. Ashlynn, what a key moment was for Ashlynn. I don't believe you would be where you are right now if you would not have joined that women's group.
Agreed.
A key moment that stands out for me flipping those scrapbook pages. I don't know, maybe 5 weeks in, we do this therapists think it's really cool. Clients probably think it's really weird, where we take an empty chair and what we call externalize the addiction. And so we take this empty chair, and I'm teaching the women about the nature of sex addiction. And up until that point, Ashlynn, this is the first major shift I saw in you when we kind of had that empty chair. And I asked the women, I want you to separate the addiction from your husband and put the addiction in that chair. And then I want you to write a letter to addiction. And that was the first kind of softening I saw in you, Ashlynn, where I do love Coby. Like, there is love there, because before they were so inextricably bound together that it was just that seething anger, and that separating was a real critical shift for you. But I don't believe you would have been able to do that any other way.
Yeah, no, I absolutely remember that moment for me, because it was kind of mind-blowing.
I remember
they are 2 separate things, and it isn't who Coby is. It's part of the mess. I wish I still had that letter. I don't know what I wrote, but I know it felt good.
Honestly, Ashlynn, I remember, I can see the couch, I can see your face, and that was one of those moments for me, that shift in your recovery, where I saw, that was when I had okay, Hope, you really do love him. It's this that the anger is so directed toward.
Yeah.
So the challenge was, if I'm hearing you guys, the challenge is Ashlynn seeing Coby as the douche. Coby was just the douche. But by going through that exercise, you were able to help Ashlynn. The turning point was separating Coby from the douche and realizing there's douche mode in the chair, but then there's Coby. There's the addiction, and then there's Coby.
Right.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and also the education of
education
her understanding the nature of sex addiction and the brain reward, and just some just being able to have some understanding of what it was.
I think this is such a critical point for the betrayed, and I just want to highlight it in that what Amy's talking about sometimes can really trigger the betrayed, where it's like, I'm supposed to see him as a lovable person and a human. Like, this is somebody who's hurt me, who's really, really taken advantage of me and gaslighted me and all those words, right? But listen to what Amy's saying. Amy, it was good for your relationship that Ashlynn had some compassion for Coby, but ultimately, it's really, really good for Ashlynn. It's good for you and your healing to not be stuck in the box of victim,
right.
To not be seething with anger, but to actually let go of that, see Coby for who he really is. He's a lovable human being with a sex addiction who's hurting her, be able to be boundaried with that, but to let go of that anger and that victim stance is actually good for Ashlynn and her healing. So it's not Amy siding with Coby or trying to get Ashlynn to see that. It's actually good for you, right? Right, Ashlynn? Is that?
Oh, yeah. And that always, what you just said at the end, I'm like, I always was blown away that you didn't take sides, because you were both of our therapists, and you never hinted to knowing something that I didn't know, which was the case for the first 6 weeks, you know, knowing about the second affair. I had no clue because you were very like, I am your therapist here and I'm your therapist there. So, yeah. The education blew me away for both sides. Just seeing, and it still blows my mind today that we still show up in these patterns and we're not taught to do it. We just do it. And so yeah, both sides, learning about betrayal trauma and learning about the addiction.
Those were big, you know, big turning points as far as I'm concerned. And I still remember, Ashlynn, you coming home from Amy's group and really just acknowledging for the first time that very principle. This is you, this is addiction. And that was I think that was just a huge door that you walked through that facilitated so much growth after that. It also gave me enormous amounts of hope to have what I never thought we could have moving forward. So that was a really important thing. And I think you guys already talked, Ashlynn, you just said this, you just alluded to it, but I'm just thinking like a really big obstacle and struggle that I had from the go, not in the intake, but was my first individual appointment, Amy, when I shared, hey, listen, I had this second affair and I'm never telling Ashlynn. I am going to the grave with this. So there's a number of issues with that, but you know, Amy and Brannon, speak to what that is. And that's got to be fairly common. Is like, I've got this thing, there's no way, because this will be a deal breaker and she will leave. What is that? It's many things, I know.
I'll let you speak to that.
Amy, how are you speechless? Like,
because I have something I want to say that like I'm editing right now.
Say it. Say it.
I can't, for real. But I mean, truthfully, it's just this like, we'll see, because we know that your recovery, that absolutely is part of it. And it's like, we know, and we hear that all the time, like, I am never going to tell her this, you know, and we're like, okay, we'll see, because you will, you know.
One thing when I hear that, and I hear it all the time, I don't tell them that they should. I just tell them I won't keep working with you if you don't. But not really. But what I do say is,
no, but it's this confidence of like, you will.
We're not gonna rush
you to it.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna collude with you and enable you to hang on to secrecy, because I know that if you really want recovery, you really desire recovery, then I'm gonna let you know that either your relationship's gonna crash and burn right now when you get honest, or you're gonna go through suffering for years until your relationship crashes and burns. So choose what you want, but you're screwed if you hang on to the secret, right?
And Coby, I guess I don't remember if I said to you, well, you absolutely will down the road, just don't.
No, Amy, you didn't say that. What you said was, it's just like, okay, like you just like, okay, noted.
Okay.
And I want you to speak to that though, because there is important design behind that. But the most important piece on this for me was by just allowing me to just have my way for just a minute, right? And just be like, okay, what that did was that allowed me to relax. That allowed me to feel safe. That allowed me to make progress on the 10 steps leading up to, the 5 steps leading up to actually sharing with Ashlynn when I did, because it just wasn't, it was the most scary thing to that point,
right?
That you just gave permission to say, okay, and you put it on the shelf, but you noted that in a big way. And clearly we circled back to it.
Yeah, because clinically, the no secrets policy Brannon is talking about is the wisest move. But I guess my confidence in you is like, well, you will.
Yeah.
It's just timing, and I'm not going to tell you in this very first appointment. Okay, it's just making me feel safe to go through.
Well, didn't you like? Wasn't there a point where you were like, it's time? or you got to do it by
Yes.
such and such a time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
called Amy mad. So there
Yeah.
you go.
So, yeah.
It
So
was
that,
tense.
so that big struggle of denial, of like, I'm not going to share this. I want to go to the grave with this. In a term, in a word, you guys, Brannon and Amy, what is that?
Well, truthfully, when a client, like the fact that in your very first appointment with me, Coby, you are sharing a big secret like that, for me, I'm just like, win, because you shared the scariest thing for you in a first session. And so for me, that's where like I'm saying my confidence in you, if
Okay.
you're sharing your scariest thing with me in a first session, my confidence
You're
in
reading
you.
between the lines of like, okay, this guy wants healing.
Yes.
He's going to go through with this.
Yes.
Okay.
So for me, that was like first session, you're coming out the gate with like your scariest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he's got this.
Well, and I think our job is not, you're going home right now and doing this. It's helping you face the fear, and you're stuck in fear is what you were. And so it's,
Totally.
I'm going to love you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to be here for you. And I'm going to help you face the fear, go through it, and help you get to the other side of it.
Man, there's some rad takeaways, you guys, from this.
and-
For those therapists who are listening, it's like, take copious notes. This was so key. This part that Brannon and Amy are touching on was the key to facilitating my willingness to just trust and share when it was prudent.
Well, you guys, and it's like the main emphasis I want to give is just slow down. Just slow down.
Yes.
Because Coby, you were not the same person first session to fifth session, to just slow down. And that safety, we're talking about, you know, building safety in order to build trust. You have to have that with us. And
It's a process.
It is a process. So slow down.
We don't do full disclosure sessions on the second session.
Like
don't
Corona
do that.
drive-through. Okay.
Here we go. No. Yeah, slow down and take part in the process.
And become safe for your client. Like they're facing, it is, I just have to speak to just how honored I felt that, like I say, first session in, you're facing your fear with somebody you don't know. So.
Well, okay. So thank you for that. But the truth is that was a very simple thing to say. I had already made the decision before I went in that I was going to do that. Not in the intake with Ashlynn, but my first individual session, because this is what I knew. And I hope that for those of you who are listening who haven't found a specialized therapist like Brannon and Amy, that you just realize this. They've been in the business for a long time. And even if they haven't been in business for a long time, they've likely seen it all. And anything that you're going to come to the table with, they've already seen 100 times. So it's not going to be a big whoop. You're not going to share anything that's going to like shock them into like this feeling of disgust, like hit the bricks, like get out of here. So that in and of itself was like, whatever I got to share, they've already seen. So who cares? Yep. I'm just going to share it.
Which that's that humility piece of yours, because we can't say, we see a lot of people that see us for a long time and they don't come in saying,
so true.
I'm going to tell you everything.
Yep. They hold it back, and their recovery struggles.
Yeah, as long as they're keeping secrets.
Yep.
So Coby, you're saying like, I mean, fine, but a lot of people, they do the same kind of trickle in disclosure with us that they do with their partner. They tell us, but they hold back. So that's a good message for you to say, you guys, they've heard everything go in, and the quicker you puke it out, the quicker we can figure it out.
So Amy, what were some of the turning points from that first session that I had with you, where I told you this big secret, to 6 weeks later, you telling me in another individual session, you're ready, she's ready, go home and share. And I did exactly what you said. I'm pretty sure I peed my pants like 5 times from when you told me to say it till I actually did.
Well, sure, because we all know your bladder is about like this big.
Right? For sure.
In fact, I know your bladder, you know, like that's how close we are.
I gotta pee. But it was so scary. So the question is what were some of the turning points that you observed in Ashlynn that helped you identify, okay, she's ready?
So,
and then also in me.
okay, what I saw in you was that consistency in you showing up. Like, you were being rigorously honest. You were showing up in every single way that you could. Like, you were earnest, you were humble, you were committed, you were doing it. Ashlynn too, you don't want to do disclosure in the middle of, like, for me, when I saw that softening and that understanding a little bit in Ashlynn, that was like, okay, there's love here. And you, by your commitment to work, like, Ashlynn's watching you write in your journal every day. She's watching you go to foundation. She's watching you exercise. She's watching you report your bottom lines. And, like, so it had to be like, she's feeling safer watching you be consistent as you never had been consistent with anything. So she's feeling
True.
safer. You, meanwhile, you're just like hungering, and you're just like, you're changing. So 6 weeks, you were not the same person that you were first session in.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Like, I mean, obviously I wasn't, because I came in saying I'm going to take this to the grave, and then 6 weeks later, it's like, I'm going to share this. Okay, so once I actually shared that, Amy, what were the other big challenges that you observed in us as a couple following the exposure?
Can I just say something?
Yeah, totally.
In that, Ashlynn and Coby are awesome and amazing, and
Is this the butt? Like, you?
I just want to say, not everybody experiences this. So sometimes the addict will hang on and refuse and stay in denial. That the addict won't keep going back to a therapist,
Right.
figuring out how to be honest and working to that point. They'll fire the therapist, they'll keep gaslighting, they'll keep blaming. And what I want to say is, the pitfalls are different for everybody, and either side can move forward if their partner isn't wanting to move forward. It usually ends in divorce, because that healthy person gets healthy enough to say, I'm not going to stay with somebody who's not progressing through this. But both of you at some point kicked into gear and started moving forward, and you started moving forward together. And that's ideal, but it's not the case for everybody.
I mean, that wasn't the case for me,
For sure.
Right.
Like, I didn't have, mine is a different story, which is, Dr. Skinner pointed out to me one time, Amy, I think you really enjoy working with the men, because when they're working recovery, they're doing something your husband never would do.
Yeah.
And so that gives you that, like, cheering them on, So something I want to say, Coby, another pivotal turning point, just like we talked about Ashlynn, externalizing the addict from Coby, you had that same turning point with your mindfulness, separating, I would say, your own share from Mama Bear Fitness, my wife is hot, to, like, separating Ashlynn into, like, when you talked about seeing her through lenses of love, and you actually started, like, separating as you started healing, you also could externalize and see Ashlynn, like, how loyal and how, like, seeing her. So that same process occurred for you with her, and that was a really significant point that I witnessed, is you really seeing her.
Not seeing, yeah, that's actually really true.
Your lenses of lust.
Yeah, they blinded me from really, Ashlynn, who you always were, because you've always been just deeply, fiercely loyal.
Right.
And thoughtful and kind in my lenses of lust. As much as I was lusting after you, I was also blind, Ashlynn, to all the goodness that you had, which is like classic douche mode.
Well, Or like foggy addict mode. You know?
Yeah.
Like, why am I so protective of calling him a dude? It's like, I can't do it. But
Ash, what do you recall about that? Do you remember that time, that season?
I don't remember it that quickly.
Oh, it
but
wasn't.
yeah,
It wasn't that quickly.
I know there was a shift.
This is like sex fast. He was always like gropey, touchy. Like this was not like I don't want to portray that it was quick. I was just saying another pivotal time. But I think Coby, even before that place, I will say one of the most impactful, even like sacred clinical experience I've ever had was a moment when you started showing compassion for yourself and you wept saying, I really love myself. I can say I love myself. And it was then that you start to show love to you for yourself, that you actually could have empathy and feel like she could feel you with you that moment. I don't know. Do you remember that moment?
I do remember that moment, and I guess that season rather than that moment, but just that whole conceptually, just really understanding like, yeah, I'm what's the SNL skit? I'm smart enough,
good enough,
and gosh darn it, people like me. Yeah, I realized how much I didn't like myself, and I realized how addiction was the great thief of my self-worth, and that recovery was the reclamation of that. And man, that was, there's still battles and struggles that I have with that, just in different ways, but that piece was huge.
And I want to also say your men's group, that was such a rad group. I remember that was my first men's group.
Was it? Oh, it was.
Wow.
I do remember that.
And Brannon was kind of like, they're not all like this.
I know.
He was like the evil, like,
like, no, I was like, good for you. You got a good one to start.
Like,
so
that group was rad. And my favorite thing about that group, you guys, like, it was a competitive group of guys that really worked the bottom lines and held each other accountable. So you guys would report on bottom lines, and you damn sure made that they did their consequence. Whether it was having the pink iPhone,
that was a big motivator to not have the pink phone. It was like, because it was there in a baggie. Here's the pink phone, Coby, and I was like, like,
no,
not going there. I'll push the floor till kingdom come.
I know.
But I'm not gonna take the pink phone.
I know. But that group, like you guys pulled each other along and you held each other accountable, and that was like reporting those bottom lines and holding each other accountable was huge.
Being willing to do that for sure. Okay, I want to shift a little bit. Ashlynn,
wait, Coby, can I hate to do this, but I gotta reiterate something, which that whole discussion you guys just had about loving yourself. And I remember the video that you made. You said my greatest accomplishment is I can now say that I'm proud of who I am.
Yeah.
It's interesting because a spouse who's waiting for her husband to get in recovery or whatever, you say you'll just know when he's there. But what you feel is he now loves himself. So now he doesn't need to consume you. So, you talk about you groping Ashlynn, or just like being entitled to her body, or totally needing her approval to tell you you're a good boy and you're good enough. And all those things are that really is that addict energy, that shame-based energy. And one of my favorite parts of my job is when I see men have the courage enough to let go of their wives.
And women. And their shame, right?
And women let go of their husbands and not need them either, and know who they are. And so that separates that codependent, overly attached relationship, creates this interdependent space where love can just thrive.
Yeah.
And that's what's awesome to see.
That's a really new concept. That's something that was just like,
it's awesome.
Greek to me.
So Ashlynn went through the women's group, and then really the next pivotal shift for you, Ashlynn, was the shame group.
Totally. That's exactly where I wanted to go, was like, that was like the rocket ship for Ashlynn, but also I guess in some ways for me too. It was like the rising tides thing.
That was, I mean, you guys, it's such a process, but that unlayering, and again, Ashlynn, you being willing to do something you didn't want to do and you didn't think you needed to do.
Well, don't you remember? I don't have shame. I am very confident. I don't need this group, Amy. And you're like, just do it. Like, you definitely have shame.
And it's kind of that same Coby. It's like, okay, that's okay. You think that, but we'll see, just do it.
Oh, yes. I was there.
You were there. And,
but what were the big shifts? What were the big shifts as you two recall for Ashlynn in the shame group? It's not just the fact that she took it. It's like, what were the big shifts? Ash, what do you think?
Okay. So I'm going to say, for me, group in general, like the first 6 weeks of group, I hated. Just found like the very first one. Like, I was like, I hate this. It's uncomfortable. I was not at all vulnerable. It was the first time I shared my story out loud. So that was like so new. It was like building blocks of like, hey, you can own who you are and own part of your story without the world crumbling, which is what I thought. So when we started the shame group, it was a different group of women. And I feel like I connected with those women more than I did that first group. Like, I don't even remember who was in my first group, but that shame group, I know everyone, because it was this extreme vulnerability of, yeah, this is this part of me that I am like letting own me and releasing that and really going through that process together. I think that's where I started talking more. Sure. I didn't talk at all in maybe the first group, but I found my voice. I found more of who I was during that time.
And truthfully, that's just you too, Ashlynn. Like, first you have to like make sense of it, and then then you're like, so it's like the first group. It was important for you to learn about sex addiction, to be able to separate that. You're making sense of it in your head, and then you can go to your heart and then be brave and speak the hard truths and confront these scary things.
I was reading Eckhart Tolle yesterday, and he was saying that our relationships, what they do is they provide an opportunity for us to see our own pain.
Right.
And and I was actually reading that to my betrayal trauma group, which is interesting because those women in a betrayal trauma group could say, what do you mean? Like, I was hurt, I was pained, I was, it's not my fault, but their relationship has provided opportunity for them to self-reflect and see their own stuff and their own pain. And I think what I'm hearing what you guys talk about with the shame group, Ashlynn, is that's where you shifted. That's where it was like, okay, now I'm shifting into really my deep self-reflection and understanding of who I am. And Brené Brown's group, there's Gandhi, Brené Brown, and whoever, but Amy facilitating that, and the way Amy facilitates that, where it's so safe for you to go in and start to speak shame to other women and open up, that's what really is a catalyst to start your healing process.
That's that individual healing, to be able to move from shame in a place of I'm not enough and I'm not, to shift, being vulnerable. And then you would, that kind of unlayering, that unpacking between you and Coby. Coby was also getting that same content at that same time with the men. And so you were having these vulnerable connecting, every couple comes in and they say, I want my partner to feel empathy for me. And they're both so stuck in shame, they can't.
Right.
And so
that's where they're stuck.
That has to be there. If they're both in shame, they're just shame spiraling each other.
Right. And they're trying to get the other person to get it to stop. Whereas you stop and you look at it and you say, what is my pain? So then I can empathize with them. So
it was that was a major shift. And I still remember I guess what I want everybody to kind of understand from this too, as far as like a major shift for Ashlynn and I, is this particular season, as far as shame is concerned, was not it was recovery, yes, but I think before recovery, this was more discovery for Ashlynn and I, as far as what shame was. And I remember, Amy, sitting in your office,
I do too,
saying like, wait a sec, like,
see, there
like,
it is.
Like
Yours
that,
is like,
what is going on? Like, I wasn't connecting dots in that session. I was just more like, wait, there is this thing, and Brene just called it what? And I kind of am starting to see it, but I'm like, I remember saying, shame to me is like, I'm in a little dinghy in the middle of the Pacific, and I don't know, and shame is the Pacific. I don't know where it starts, where it ends. I don't know how broad it is. I don't know its depths, but all I know is I'm in the middle of it, and I didn't realize that I have been in the middle of it. It was absolutely mind-blowing for me, and it really was a matter of discovery. And the cool part is, Amy, is that you had us both learn that content simultaneously.
Right.
So what happened, Ashlynn, you and I at home, we just began to talk about shame, because you were reading Brene's book. What was it, Ashlynn?
I thought it was just me.
But it's not. And
But
then
it isn't. Yeah.
But it isn't. And then that began really, Ashlynn, the intellectual intimacy for you
sure.
and I, right? Do you remember that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like what the review was talking about, listening to these two things and then coming together with our own takeaways.
And it wasn't a matter of you and I think you were, I know for sure that you were more, clearly Amy knew, okay, the girls can handle, because I think a lot of the girls that were in your group, their husbands were in my group, right? And I think in her wisdom, she knew the boys can't handle the book, but they can handle quotes. So we're going to give the girls the book.
You guys wouldn't have read the book.
No,
I mean,
no, we could, like, I couldn't even understand a few quotes from
real.
Brene.
so do you remember, like, the TV? You guys would be like, whoa, pause it. And
Yes.
you'd pause it, and you guys would get out your phones and take a picture.
I
of
still
the
have
screen.
pictures on my phone, like 3 of them from that exact group session.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was, for me, the cool part is just being able to say, oh, in my family of origin, this is how shame showed up.
Right.
This is how I experienced it.
And I think, and also for me, it was having some ownership of my part in our marriage, rather than I had spent most of our marriage just blaming Coby for everything instead of owning any of who I was. So that was pivotal for me.
Okay, I want to ask you guys a question, all 3 of you guys. So, in some ways, it sounds like kumbaya, la-di-da, like, hey, we're moving along, life is
so
good.
great.
Like, it's so great. We're going to our shame groups and everything's wonderful. Okay, like, what was like, felt like end of the world, devastating pitfall where it's like, oh my gosh, this is hard.
Well,
and
how'd
you work through that? 6 weeks in. Okay.
6 weeks in, I wasn't liking group, and that's when Coby told me about the second affair, and we went on vacation the next day. We also separated that day, and so it did feel
Disneyland, right?
Yep, we went to Disneyland. We also went to a wedding, which was like, I did not want to be there.
That sounds like hell.
Yeah.
It's
Ashlynn.
like salt in a wound.
It was.
So what did you do?
It totally was.
How do you, in moments like that, where did you get the fortitude, the strength? Amy, how did you help Ashlynn through this? Like, what did you do?
I'm not great at putting on a mask and pretending. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, so that's not a good thing. But we really just tried to focus on our kids during that trip, but we were separated. So when we came home from the trip, it was like the hard reality of, okay, we did an in-house separation at that time, and we still worked together. We worked from home. Like, it was just messy and it was uncomfortable. There wasn't a lot of hope, I don't know, on either of our ends, but we still kept going.
You hated group, but you kept going. And that's what I mean. You kept going.
We also, Coby had lost his job during that time, and we kept going.
Add that in the mix.
I mean, it's bananas that we made it this far with the obstacles that were put in our way.
Right.
But that's why, yes, I 100% believe in spending the money and investing in ourselves despite what your ending is, because we did it. Like, we put all of our savings, we put everything into, we have to figure this out.
And I think that's
we knew we'd take it with us.
Okay, so that's a timely statement considering the current climate.
I know.
And just for everybody who
Yes,
listens to this,
I know.
you're like, right now we are in the middle of coronavirus, COVID-19. We're not living under martial law, but there's a big quarantine. Like, schools canceled, restaurants are not allowing people to dine in, and so
Jobs lost.
Yeah, there's jobs that are lost, right? And we know that that's affecting people financially. And I want you guys to remember on this that we were once there as well, in the fact that literally it was what was it, 6 weeks in when I was laid off from my job. And we were like, we knew for sure that having gone to Brannon's foundation, having done one-on-one with Amy, Ashlynn, you doing group, 1,000% we had to figure out a way to do it. But we were faced with like serious financial stress, but we were just like, this is what we have to have this.
It was the priority. And I can 100% say you would not be where you are if Ashlynn would have just said, okay, Coby, you fix you, and I'm going to, like, you would not be where you are.
1,000%. Because I just, going back to the shame piece, right? It was imperative that we both learn where shame was. And it wasn't like, hey, this is where your shame is. You're shaming me this. We didn't do that. Well, it was discovery for ourselves.
Exactly.
As an example of it.
I mean, Ashlynn is a completely different person as a result of you doing your own work.
Yeah, no question.
I love what.
But
Go ahead, Ashlynn.
I just wanted to say that sounds easy too. Like, we made it happen. It also took us years to recover from that. Yeah. So I'm not saying it was easy. I'm saying it was hard, and we still did it.
I love what you just said, Ashlynn. If you're going through hell, just keep on moving. You just keep going. And there's nothing really like sexy or cool about that advice. It's not like some tricky little thing that you might feel like you're in hell. It might feel almost hopeless, and you just keep going. You keep fighting, and that's one of the reasons why you guys are here today. So
and
it's funny because
go Ash.
Have those moments when a new hard thing comes and I'm like, how long is this going to take? I'm going to Google, how long is this going to take? When will this be over? I still go to that. And I feel like once you get past the, like, guess what? There is no answer. Like, your journey is your journey. And if you keep moving and not dancing around or stalling or whatever, you're going to get to a place where it's not so uncomfortable. And that's exactly what happens every day.
Every time. And something I can say, I think one of the biggest mistakes that other couples make is, I want to invest the least amount financially, the least amount time-wise in order to, I just want to invest the least. So they'll say, maybe we can come see you once a month. Like, it's just.
Let me pay you, Amy, for like 3 sessions and then fix everything. And you can fix it, not me, and then we'll get better.
It's
ugh.
Don't you think that's the, like, investing? You have to invest in it.
Right.
And we're not
just talking about money. We're talking about your energy.
Your daily, your commitment, showing up to group when it's like, I don't connect here. I don't want to be here, but you do it anyway.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a total life transformation. I know that we're getting short on time, but we moved through the separation. I know for sure that the separation was really, really critical for us. And that was kind of like the last bit of the journey to allow our old relationship to die so that our new relationship could be reborn. I know that was a really important step for us. But after that, I'm just thinking, any other turning points that you can think of that come to mind that were important for both of us?
Yes, like flipping that scrapbook as Ashlynn was in the shame group and she started speaking her shame, she also was really brave and courageous to start doing EMDR on her own work. And so that's one of those critical moments that I remember. Ashlynn, for you was starting EMDR and that was, you know, I think the end of like as you were working through in the shame group.
Yeah. And that was, just for those who don't know, trauma work. So I'm not doing like talk therapy and trying to dig up stuff. I'm trying to reprocess things I already know I need to work on.
Yeah,
so I would definitely agree with that.
That one was a big one, and I remember that not being easy.
No.
For you, Ashlynn, that was challenging and tough. So what made you continue with it after, you know, it's like you experienced once and it's like,
the first experience, we have a whole episode about it. I couldn't even get on my phone. Like I was just so spent, and it took from me so much. But I guess for me, that was evidence that it did work, because I could start to see and feel different the days after, of like, oh, I don't feel that same pull that I used to feel, that I felt for decades instead. So, yes, amen.
You know, I keep using the scrapbook, but you guys sharing your story publicly, you know, that was from the first time I met you, Ashlynn, and I laugh about how I said hi to you in the store and you were mad. You were like, when I see you in public, you don't know.
Don't talk to me.
So you moving from a place of, I don't have any problems, and if you see me in public, you don't know me. A year later, sharing your story, I mean, that is the story, to tell you how much you both changed to get to that place. And you both shared from a place of love, just wanting to give others hope. There was no intention of Ashlynn and Coby, and it was literally, we want other couples. It was love. It was coming from a place of we want to give hope, and we want to share what we've learned. And so
it's been awesome.
That was a big one. I will say this too. Another really big obstacle that I had was, and we alluded to this earlier, and I want to just touch on this because I think this was a really important thing for me, was like lusting after you, Ashlynn, and just my lenses of lust. And we talked about how that blinded me from the qualities and characteristics that you had, Ashlynn. But that also meant that I was not present because I was so tunnel vision in lust, just in general. And so doing a sex fast with you, Ashlynn, was really, really important. And more specifically, for those of you guys who don't know, Ashlynn has scoliosis. So she has 2 rods that are fused to her spine. And during the sex fast, I remember Ashlynn, like, my back hurts so bad. And those were really kind of the beginning moments of what would then become your second fusion in your back, because your back was hurting so badly. But I remember giving you a hot stone massage on your back. And I remember over and over and over again, just, I'm going to see Ashlynn for who she is. I'm going to see Ashlynn for who she is. I'm going to see Ashlynn for who she is. Like, my eyes are closed. I'm just like moving rocks. But that was, do you remember that, Amy?
I do. You'd be like, okay, I'm trying so hard, Amy. I remember.
The struggle was real.
But Coby, you were like, you literally went from the most mindless human to really practicing that awareness and that mindfulness. Like you did it.
That was super important for me. I want to hear, Ashlynn, what that you had a really affirmative yes, a really yes.
Well, I remember Amy telling you so many times, like, Coby, you will not die without sex. And you were just like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? And so for me, the sex fast was huge because it redefined what sex was. It was no longer sex equals love and sex equals life. It was like a whole different experience. And it was this beautiful thing instead of what it had been for my marriage which was like this kind of resentful and fine, I'll do it. Or it was very one-sided, and it's never been that way since. So
it was a huge turn.
I want to mention one more before we wrap up. I kind of, if I'm turning my scrapbook too, so
get it.
I know I'm not your therapist, but I've seen a lot of the journey.
Yeah, you have.
And I just want to take a look at kind of the current chapter. And one thing that I'm really seeing happen, which I think is really like top level. Just I see Coby not showing up as the douche, as I'm the problem, I'm the bad guy. It is my fault. Things are my fault. I'm seeing him be more honest, more vulnerable, and more boundaried with Ashlynn, which actually brings out your masculinity, your good masculinity, and creates that polarity in your relationship. And I've seen you guys struggle through that to get there. But Coby, I see you stepping into your power, and I'm sure Ashlynn is more attracted to that than showing up weak, right? So
yes, for sure. It's weird. I used to like describe like, Coby, I just want you to like, and I would describe like this, you know, I'm doing these motions like a man, like be strong, do the thing. And he's just like, but I didn't know how to explain it. And then when he started actually living that way of not just, I don't know how it's bending over. I don't know what he'd call it, but he would just crumble.
Yeah.
Get it, Ashlynn.
But not mean. Like you haven't been mean in it. Sometimes you have been like the boom, this is me. But it's different. It's a different energy than this
Real
is me.
Strength.
Except who I am. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what's been beautiful to witness both of you discover and reclaim who you are individually and as a couple. Reclaim.
Yeah, we're still doing it.
I know.
Yeah, I honestly really appreciate you saying that, Brannon, because I think that's one of the very, very, and no one knows this more than you two, Brannon and Amy, but that's one of the really apparent, very big scarlet letters that addicts wear it's like just they wear the D, right? There's just always the D on the chest is like, I'm the douche. So I have no legs to stand on. It's not okay for me to push back. It's not okay for me to say what I feel. And excuse me, that was very much me.
Which in fact, a woman does not want. Yeah. They don't want a weak man who can't show himself, right? Yeah. They also don't want a pompous jerk.
I will say that process, like some therapists, again, go slow because trying to do that too early in recovery, an addict will be all over that.
Oh, totally. And they'll do it in the wrong way.
And they'll do it in the wrong way. So there is just such a gradual process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was, I appreciate you saying that, Brannon. That's a big one. And that's a very front and center one for me. And it's still, you know, it's still sometimes it's still a struggle to do that, to just say, all right, this is what I'm actually thinking right now. And to say it in a way that's not, like Ashlynn said, like this, but to just say, here's where I am.
There's a difference.
This is me.
Yeah.
Ash.
I have one last question for Brannon and for Amy. You've kind of mentioned some of these things, and I'm guessing a lot of our audience forgets how long we've been in this journey and that we're still choosing to be in this journey. What is like a time frame estimated of what you see couples working and making these shifts and seeing success?
Oh, that's such a hard question because you look at
I know.
for you two, I mean, we know it's a long process. We say, what do we say? 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And couples are like, 3 to 5 years. What?
Right. Yeah.
But you see, you know, your first year really is about just creating those new pathways. And like you look from in your first year, we're establishing sobriety. We're like, that's the first year.
Right. Yes. I just think that's a really complicated question because the truth is Jenny and I are in our process right now of healing and connection and intimacy And what I mean by that is our relationship is constant work, and it's a work in progress. So you never arrive.
And if
right?
you want to always grow, it always is going to be.
It's always going to be.
But that's what's beautiful too.
Yes. But Amy, I do think what you're talking about, there is like from shattered to thriving, right? So when you are shattered, when D-Day comes, when trust is just gone, I do think there is a time frame, and everybody's a little bit different, but there's a process of rebuilding that foundation, so you can continue to do the work that you guys are doing now. And I'd say, 1 to 3 years, you kind of start to get in that, okay, like they're working recovery, I'm working recovery, things are getting better.
Well, yeah. So, Ashlynn, you look at your first year. I mean, from where you started to sharing your story, huge change. And then that next year is really about attachment and so there are just these big chunks.
Yep. Yet it's piece by piece.
By piece.
Isn't Amy the best?
Yeah.
I just love Amy. She's amazing. And it's been far too long for us not to have her on the podcast. So I'm glad you actually came, Amy.
I know.
And don't be a stranger.
Brannon used to work right next door to me, and like our offices. I mean, I think you were the only one I ever talked to there.
Yeah, we'd hide from other people.
We would.
It was. I remember Brannon and Amy saying like, "Hey, if there's if there are the kids that I want to sit next to at the lunch table,
it's
Brannon."
Oh, thanks, Amy.
It's true. It's true. And I want to say, like, it's funny. Coby hates this story, but I'm just gonna end with it.
Okay.
I'm very, I know Kobe's like, what is it? Coby like gets this like, oh, like sad face. So this is funny. My only claim to fame in this whole recovery world is people coming into Addo and they'll say, oh, you're the Amy.
Oh, the Amy.
The Amy. And I'm like, yeah, like, but a client a couple weeks ago, he's like, you're the Amy. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, but you're not the expert.
Oh, that's funny.
And I
don't love that
so hard.
story.
And I told Coby that story. Oh, you're our expert.
You are totally an expert, Amy.
Yeah.
So thank you for
He is our expert. Honestly, it's been just rad having you here. Like Brannon said, it's been way too long, but this has just been. It's nice to reflect. It's nice to hear your perspective, and honestly, it makes me super thankful for just putting our heads down and just going, because all of a sudden it's like, wait, where are we now? So, guys, we appreciate you being here. Again, want to remind you that the Relationship Rescue Challenge is going to be ramping up. So go to beyond-enough.com/relationship.
You guys don't be intimidated. It's simple. It's very affordable. It's like $30, but it's powerful. And we really feel like we were inspired to do it. Like the content in there walks you through a process that is so awesome. So go check it out.
Well, and
Absolutely.
what I want to say, and Brannon can echo this, Coby and Ashlynn are my favorite, but we see couples like what you guys do. We see couples go through, if you just do this work, you will change.
It works.
And it works. And so that's something I want to say, like, I'll tell people, go listen to Brannon and Ashlynn and Coby, because they invested so that maybe they're sharing some of that with you guys. So I tell everyone,
that's awesome.
Thanks,
Amy.
Yeah, that's cool. Guys,
hey, I don't want to forget Amy. Where can we find Amy? Because the people want Amy. We know this. So where can they find you?
Because I'm so great at that. I will say Brannon's the expert.
Amy's the expert too, you guys.
Where you can find Amy. Ashlynn is, thank you for nudging me to be brave, because I like to just hole up in my office and hide, So thanks for pushing me to be brave.
She's afflicting the comforted, Amy.
I know.
So where do we find you?
Okay, so I have an Instagram, Ask Amy Andrus, and you can ask me anything, and
Okay.
I will respond.
Okay, we will put that in the show notes so you guys can
Ask Amy Andrus anything.
Yep.
Ask Amy Andrus anything.
Okay, we love it. Amy, appreciate you
Awesome.
being here.
And by anything, I really, really mean anything.
That's the coolest part about it. That's the coolest part about it.
Okay.
So guys,
We're going to go test it.
Exactly. We'll test it out. If you have not yet, guys, love to have you help other people who are in the dark corners, the throes of addiction by leaving a review. That will help them find this. And if you haven't rated us, please do so as well. So thanks for being here, and we will see you again.
Love you all.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.